Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red Podcast. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette. We're back here on this Monday morning with another episode, and we are now 12 days away from Nebraska football. We're going to have a starting quarterback named this week, probably, according to Matt Rule, so we're going to talk about that.
Praying for that, but
Yeah, praying for that. Some other fall camp stuff, some injury stuff, some risers and fallers, a little bit of recruiting information. So we're going to cover all that. Before we get to that stuff, please make sure that you guys hit the like button, hit the subscribe button to the podcast, get into the comments section. And with that, Danny, how are you doing on this fine Monday morning?
I'm good. I got my fantasy football draft this weekend. We're getting closer to the start of the season, and actually pretty well for a Monday. This later start time that we do to record also helps a little bit, I do have to say. So I'm chipper today.
Chipper, it is. Well, this was the last weekend, this past weekend, without college football. It's week 0, so there's going to be some games on Saturday. And I think we're going to start the old Saturday morning chats. We'll re-up those on Saturday morning, get week 0 off on the right foot this week. So keep an eye out for that. We'll get the crew kind of back going, and hopefully you guys will re-engage with those chats, and we can get those started every Saturday morning too. It'll be kind of our pregame kickoff, but since we have nothing else to do in week 0, why not talk some football with our Nebraska friends?
At least we're not talking Nebraska week 0, because we haven't had the best luck in recent years for week 0 games. So I'm happy we're not in week 0.
Yeah, I'm happy we're not in week 0 and that we actually get to play a non-conference opponent.
Yeah.
I'm sick of those Big Ten openers. I guess it's nice if you win, but it's kind of a setback if you lose. So I don't know. And not that I'm looking past UTEP at all. I don't count any win as a guaranteed win for Nebraska football after what we've seen the past 8 years.
No, and you know what? Scotty Walden over at UTEP is a good coach. Matt Rule praised him over the weekend. He's a guy, 34 years of age. He came over this year from Austin P. He led Austin P to a 34-20 record over the course of 4 seasons, including a first place finish in 2022 and 2023, and they lost in the first round of the Division I NCAA playoffs last year, finished overall 9-3. So I think, people look at it as, oh, it's UTEP, we should be able to roll them, and I'm not sure that's going to necessarily be the case, and that's not, because Nebraska is going to fail. That's just because Scotty Walden, I think, runs a really good ship overall in the places he's been.
Yeah, they like to run, kind of a high-powered offense, so I think it'll be a good challenge defensively. I'm thinking back at terms of their personnel. I'll have to do some more checking, but I don't feel like that they have. I feel like they kind of have some new guys. I feel like they brought in a transfer quarterback. I might be confusing them with somebody else though, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, nothing is guaranteed. I mean, Nebraska is 5-7 last year. Matt Rule's talked about that a bunch. Like, the goal this offseason is to get to 1-0, and that's how they need to think about it every single week. 1-0 at one game at a time. All those mantras that are so annoying to fans, but the teams that can actually execute that stuff one game at a time, one practice at a time, the old Bill Belichick mantra, those are the ones that are actually successful. It's lame and it's boring, but if you can actually do it, your team's going to find success. So hopefully Nebraska can finally, block out the noise and start playing some winning football this season.
Yeah, and it starts with, the freshmen. Honestly, I heard a lot about Vincent Shavers over the weekend, and Matt Rule said he's as good as anybody, and he should be able to get some playing time. I forget the exact quote he used, but I will find it for you. So, but Vincent Shavers is a guy that Matt Rule talked about in his press conference over the weekend with the media, and I'm really excited to see what he can bring to the table. When you think about how his recruitment played out, Nebraska kind of snuck in there right before signing day. Miami took a pretty talented linebacker to replace Shavers, but that doesn't mean that Shavers is a bad football player. Shavers is really, really good. He's impressed over the course of spring ball. He's continuing to impress over the course of fall camp. So I just thought it was really cool to see the praise continue for Shavers, which means, he's going to be a pretty solid player. And I think we're going to see him on the field for extended action in no time. I don't think he's going to be one of those freshmen where you sit for 1 or 2 years and, let him kind of, just kind of marinate on the bench. He's going to be a factor pretty soon, in my opinion.
I agree. I think Shavers is going to play a lot, especially with the injury to not the injury, but the medical condition that's keeping Javin Wright out indefinitely. Matt Rule didn't say the entire season, but
what a shame. I feel bad for him.
Yeah, because really played well last year, and didn't play much at all his first two seasons, but was really productive last year. Had one start, was going to expected to be the starter this year, so hopefully he can bounce back. I'm not sure, he's had blood clot issues in the past. I'm not sure if
Hmm.
that's Matt Rule just said medical condition, so hopefully he'll be back at some point this season. But I guess the biggest thing that I took away from Saturday, Matt Rule talked about naming a quarterback, a starting quarterback. He was asked about that. He said it will probably name a starting quarterback this week. He also said, I feel like we have three quarterbacks that we can win with, and I'm assuming that he means Raiola, Harburg, and I'm not sure if he means Daniel Kalen or Gramstad, but he was talking up Daniel Kalen, so that's who I think he. The more I think about it, I believe he's talking about Daniel Kalen, not Gramstad. Um, he also talked up, Kalen, and in the sense that he has the it factor, and that both Rayola and Kalen can be future NFL quarterbacks. So I think he's trying to hedge a little bit and trying to keep that quarterback room solid, kind of respect those other quarterbacks. But I mean, there's no way that Dylan Rayola is not named the starting quarterback this week, right?
No, he's trying to just give respect to the room and the quarterback competition, which is what you should do. I mean, honestly, if you think he doesn't have a plan, and I'm not saying you personally, just in general, like the Nebraska fan populace doesn't think he has a plan for starting quarterback, then you're sorely mistaken. And I believe you posted something where where you said that Matt Rule indicated that there's NFL quarterbacks on the roster, and he said the same thing about Jeff Sims. Well, if Jeff Sims was able to put it together, I truly believe he was an NFL caliber player. But no, I think Matt Rule's just trying to hedge a little bit, and I believe behind the scenes he has a plan. So I think it's all going to come down to when the announcement is made. Personally, and this is just a wild guess, I'm going to say either Wednesday or Thursday, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I would think it would be one of these days here. I mean, yeah, Ohio State named their quarterback. Some other teams haven't. Some other teams that have, I guess, competitions, you could say. No, I saw Notre Dame just named their starting quarterback. I know a lot of people like the gamesmanship thing, but I just think it's pretty clear that Rayola is going to be the starter. And the challenge for Nebraska, like it's always been with this quarterback class, is how do we get through Dylan's 3 years while also keeping Daniel Kalen here and preparing him for his time to start afterward? Because I do agree with Matt Rule that both guys have NFL potential. I think he talked about with Kalen too. He just needs to develop and mature a little more with his arm strength. Physically, I think mentally he's right there with Dylan Raiola in terms of what he can do. But yeah, so to me that's kind of the goal, is how do you manage that process, and how do you get the most out of both of these quarterbacks? Because if you can do that, you could have strong quarterback play at Nebraska for the next 5 years. And looking at the past 5 years, that would be a tremendous thing for this program.
Yeah, looking at the past 5 years, it's not exactly a Van Gogh rosy painting, but on the same token, if other teams, manage to lure Kalen away from Nebraska, and if Dylan shows he can succeed in this system, then I think that makes it a little bit more attractive to other potential quarterbacks who are on the market. Maybe not, I'm not going to say higher rated quarterbacks, but if Kalen were to leave and the offensive system works like it's supposed to, then I believe it makes it an attractive destination for others as well. So if we lose Kalen, we can also, I believe, get somebody who's just as talented or maybe even more talented. And, it's all part of the transfer portal game, right? We can lose players, but we can also get them. And I think this is going to be a big year for Marcus Satterfield to try to build the offensive blueprint that he wants in order to make it attractive to those players.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one thing with Daniel Kalen specifically is he's from Nebraska. He has a strong affinity for this program, and so I
Yeah.
do think it's not going to be easy for other programs to get him away. But I definitely think that it's gonna happen. There's going to be teams that are going
Yeah.
to try to get him, because there's only so many good quarterbacks out there. And you look at, maybe not this year, but it just depends how much he plays. But you look at next year, the more he kind of moves up and gets more experience, gets more maturity, the more we see him more in like spring ball and whatnot.
Hmm.
His stock will rise, and other teams will come from him. And at any rate, though, I do think, like the Big Ten Network crew said, this Nebraska quarterback room, they didn't just say Dylan Raiola, they said quarterback room is as good as they've seen. And that's, Texas, I mean, not Texas, excuse me, Ohio State, Oregon, not sure where I got Texas from there, but, you look at, I mean, the thing about it, Will Howard, I think Will Howard's going to be a good player. I think he's going to be fine. But the reality is, he was chased away from Kansas State. If he was still in Manhattan, he would not be the starter. That's why he left there. You can say the exact same thing about Dylan Gabriel in Oregon. Like, he left Oklahoma. It wasn't because he wanted. They wanted Jackson Arnold to play, or whatever his name. The 5-star quarterback that they've
No,
got.
I
Like,
really like
that's
Jackson Arnold. That's his name, yeah.
yeah, that's why Dylan Gabriel was on the transfer portal to begin with. So I mean, it's like, if that, like, put it this way, if JJ McCarthy had not gone to the NFL or whatever, like, Michigan didn't have another quarterback. Like, he was going to be their guy. You know what I mean? They weren't pushing him out the door like Oklahoma did with Dylan Gabriel. And if somebody's that good, like, if they're really that good, a program changer, you don't push him out the door. Okay, so, like, I get that Oregon's got Dylan Gabriel and Ohio State's got Will Howard, but the fact is, Will Howard was not good enough to be the starter this year for Kansas State. So those two teams are leading, or the prohibitive conference favorites. You've got Michigan, who's also in the mix, who is going to have a first-time starter. And frankly, I just do not believe in Penn State whatsoever. I think Drew Aller's fine, but I think that James Franklin is the most overrated coach in America, and he can't coach his way out of a cardboard box. So, like, at the end of the day, I don't think that the Big Ten, that the top teams in this conference are, like, unbeatable for Nebraska. And frankly, I think that Dylan Raiola is probably a better quarterback than all of those guys.
I don't like Drew Aller at all. I mean, you gave him a little more grace than I did, but I really don't like Drew Aller whatsoever.
I mean,
And
if he played somewhere else, he might have a shot, but
yeah, I feel like Penn State is where quarterbacks go to die. I mean, Sean Clifford was decent, but I think when it comes down to it, it's going to be about again, can they build that offensive blueprint? Because last year the entire offensive blueprint was thrown out the window. I mean, once Jeff Sims, I'm trying to put this nicely. Once he kind of just didn't work out, they kind of had to adjust on the fly, and so they kind of had to have a makeshift offense. This year, I think we're going to see a lot more of what Marcus Satterfield wants, because there were times I remember even in the Louisiana Tech game where Satterfield tried to throw the ball deep, and you could see Matt Rule yelling at him on the sideline, like, run the ball. Like, we're not sure exactly what he was saying, but it was pretty clear he wanted him to run the ball. So I think we're going to see what this offense can do. We're going to take the training wheels off, so to speak, and it's going to be a big year to establish not only the offense for this year, but also the blueprint for the future.
So some other stuff going on with fall camp. Now that we've talked about the quarterback position, there's some other things we mentioned. Javin Wright is going to be out for a while, so Vincent Shaver is going to have to step in, into that role. That's going to create some other opportunities for guys at the linebacker spot. But another big takeaway that I had from Matt Rule's press conference on Saturday was his talk about the secondary. He said that he sleeps well when Mario Buford is out there playing cornerback with Tommy Hill, Deshaun Singleton, Isaac Gifford, Malcolm Hartzog. So to me, Matt Rule laid out your starting secondary right there for game one. It's going to be Marcus Buford playing cornerback. That I would be stunned if it's not him, based on Matt Rule's comments and just the room itself. Bly Hill's not healthy. I mean, he's getting there. He got the yellow jersey off, so he's back in practice, but I don't think he's
Which
ready
is good,
to go.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what Matt Rule said with Tristan Alvano. Just, there's a difference in being ready to go and kind of being able to really be in the competition. So I think Bly Hill will get there, but Jeremiah Charles, another guy that's been banged up. Sayer Wright, making a move, and Amari Sanders. But that's the thing, is like, you're not going to go into a game and play two quarterbacks. Like, Nebraska's going to have to play 4 cornerbacks week one. That's just how, you're going to have to play 10 defensive backs every single game. So just because these guys aren't starting doesn't mean that they're not going to play. But that was a kind of another takeaway for me, that I think that that battle in the secondary is a little more settled right now.
And that secondary that you mentioned, I am completely fine with.
Mm-hmm.
I feel very comfortable there, and I'm very curious to see what Mario Buford can do in a full season when healthy. I know he struggled with health issues throughout the course of his career, and then you have Tommy Hill, who I really liked. If you think about Tommy Hill's career, came in as a corner, had to switch to wide receiver at one point in 2022 because of lack of depth. And if you can believe that now, considering all the names we have there. But, I feel really comfortable about that secondary group, and I'm excited to see what Deshaun Singleton can do, because his injury put a damper on the safety unit. And, he's a veteran leader on a defense that has a mix of veterans and younger players, but a lot of youth. So I feel very comfortable with that secondary group. And you mentioned Tristan Alvano and the kicking battle. John Hull, Matt Rule kind of alluded that, he's kind of not taking the lead, but he's making noise in camp. And with Alvano's injury, I feel like Hull could play a bigger factor in the kicking game than we realize. Or maybe not than we realized, but than we initially thought, like heading into the camp.
Yeah, it was good that they picked him up from Western Iowa, kind of a more experienced kicker. I definitely think there's a good chance he'll handle kickoffs and then, the place kicking duties. I think it's just going to come down to what Tristan Alvano can do over the next couple of weeks. He finally is healthy. He's on the 120-man roster again, and excuse me. I think it's just going to see how he produces in camp here leading up to that final or that first game.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a bad thing to have kicking competition. Do I want Alvano to start and be healthy and be the go-to guy? Absolutely. But when you look at the struggles he had last year combined with his health, if you have an opportunity to not rush him back into things and to make sure he's really ready to go, then that's what you do, because we've had too many kicking issues over the past couple seasons to where if we have depth now, I feel like we should use it.
And looking at a lot of the position battles, I feel like are kind of, left tackle is settled. A lot of those things are settled. I mean, that was in part due to injury. The secondary group, I think that's pretty much settled. Linebacker, you're going to have some guys in the mix there playing a lot. Same with wide receiver. The one that's kind of still undecided to me is the running back position. And I feel like that's just going to be, a running back by committee, but it's tough right now. It's really difficult. That might be one of the more difficult predictions, like who's going to start that first game, because I honestly don't know. It could be Emmett Johnson, could be Ramir Johnson. I want to say probably one of the two Johnsons, though, is my guess. Dante Dowdell is coming on. Satterfield talked him up in Saturday's press conference, and I thought that was good to hear him finally get some positive things about Dante Dowdell. And we're a few weeks into camp. Sometimes it takes the running backs a little bit of time, and he is 6'2", 220. So I mean, when the pads come on, that's when he should shine. And you look at him and Gabe Irvin, you could have two really big, powerful backs with Emmett Johnson and Ramir Johnson. But that's my guess right now, is it'll be either be Ramir or Emmett starting. But I think it's going to be a full running back by committee approach,
which is great because we haven't had that in quite a while. Multiple running backs that we can rely on. We tried the running back by committee. We tried it with Anthony Grant, and then, Gabe Irvin, and then Irvin got hurt. And, so that'll be really good. And like you said, Satterfield talked up Dowdell over the weekend, characterized him as a strong downhill physical runner, which is perfect for what Nebraska wants to do. And, if I had to decide who the starting running back would be, my guess would probably be Emmett. I would say Emmett Johnson would be the starter just based off of his experience last year. And that's not a knock on anybody. It's just more of a testament to, the potential of the running back room and how much depth there is.
And so let's switch over just a few kind of recruiting notes before we wrap up the show. Just basically a couple of things that happened over the weekend. So first off, on Saturday, we did get the bad news, the final word that David Sanders did commit to Tennessee. He said kind of some interesting things. I thought that Nebraska kind of entered late, or they were a little late to the party, something like that. So it made me think maybe if Nebraska got in the mix earlier, would that have mattered? Probably not, because I've heard reports, or I read a report that David Sanders got a 1.6 NIL deal, which I think that's even more than Dylan Raiola got. So it's like, how do you go beyond? I mean, NIL, you still have to have some even though there's not a salary cap, there's still you have to have some sort of structure. And it's like,
for a guy that's never played a college snap,
to pay him over, the guy you kind of broke the bank for to get Dylan, that would have been tough to do. So you want to stay away from that type of thing. Honestly, you don't want to have that type of infighting or whatever, but so that was a disappointment, but at the same time, I thought it was good for Nebraska to get into the top two. I never really expected them to get David Sanders, and I'm all in on Jackson Cantwell in 2026. Maybe Nebraska will get an 8 or 9 win season, and they can finally get that 5-star tackle to go with the 5-star quarterback.
Nebraska didn't come in late. They just didn't offer enough money. I mean, that's the bottom line there. I mean, I love how they try to frame, Nebraska was a little late. No, they just didn't they just didn't open the checkbook big enough. But again, if it wasn't a money thing, I would feel more upset that Nebraska missed on him. But what'd you say, 1.6
Yeah, 1.6
for not even a
was
college
what I
snap?
read.
No, I'm good. I'm all
There
set.
was, did you see the guy he's a top 100 lineman, but he went to Georgia Tech and he got like $900,000. That Pete Nikos of On3 reported
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, because I'm
I'm not
like,
even
why
sure
did
how
you
he
go to?
got that information, but that's, yeah.
I'm
It's
like,
like
why would you go to Georgia Tech? And then I read that. I'm like, oh, okay.
dropping the money
Okay.
bags, man. Like, holy. So when Georgia Tech's dropping bags of money, you got to get serious. So
I know, for real.
um
Especially when you beat out Georgia, you know.
yeah,
But
exactly.
but yeah, so it is a miss, but I wouldn't be too upset about it. I mean, I'm not offering him that amount of money. I mean, the fact in like, yeah, he's gonna be worth it, but the fact that we dropped 1.5 on Rayola is crazy too. Like when you really think about it, like again, not even a college snap, and so I think I like where Nebraska's offensive line stands and where their recruiting stands. Jackson Cantwell, like you said, is a guy to watch out for in this next class. I wonder what he'll want for NIL money, but
Yeah, who knows?
I think I wouldn't be too upset about it. I think Nebraska, quite honestly, in my personal opinion, didn't come in late. I just think it came down to who could offer the most money. I mean, they had him over for a visit back in June, and his family loved it, and Nebraska made the top two, so I can't get mad at the effort they put in for Sanders. I really just think it came down to the money. And I really like where the line stands right now, both, on the roster and in recruiting. And, I think when you compete with the big boys, you're going to miss out on some. But like you kind of alluded to, there kind of has to be some sort of fine line when offering, money to these kids. It's just 1.6 is a crazy number for somebody who's never even played.
Yeah.
Like I get like if we wanted to offer Judkins, the running back from Ohio State, and he wanted to come to Nebraska, and he was like 1.6, and fine. But David Sanders, who hasn't played yet, and I'm not saying he's going to be a bad player. It's just I don't know. I'm all for players getting paid, but this money thing is getting a little too crazy.
It is getting pretty crazy, but it does show the importance of the 1890 initiative and all that. But I guess in terms of the 2025 class, I'm interested to see if Nebraska now, if they're, I like the tackles that they have, but I'm interested to see if they follow the fall evaluation period a little bit more, and if we see like another offer for another offensive tackle. Just something to keep in mind, because I feel like if they miss on Michael Terry, they are going to try to get back to Cortez Mills, but at any rate, I think they're still in a solid spot. They've got 6 blue chips, 18 commitments total, and yeah, David Sanders was more of a pipe dream than anything else. Another bit of news though in the 2026 class, Braylon Womack is a
Yep.
5-star safety, the number 3 overall safety in the 2026 class, out of Flowood, Mississippi. He had Nebraska in the top 10 with a bunch of other big time programs.
Yeah.
Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame. Notre Dame's got 2 crystal ball predictions already for this kid, so you can kind of see where that's trending. Although those did come back in June, so I mean, things can change over a couple of months. But doesn't seem like Nebraska's near the top in this one, but still in the mix for one of the top overall prospects in 2026 in Braylon Womack.
Yeah, that's certainly a good thing. When you look at his offer sheet, we're battling Texas A&M, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Alabama, Tennessee, and Texas and LSU, just to name a few. So, I like the fact that we're making top 10 lists. That at least shows that these kids are thinking about the program, and coming off a 5-7 season right now. We're still going after these highly touted prospects, and I don't love our chances, but I would love to have him at Nebraska. And we have a solid safety room right now, and he would be a great addition for the future. So we'll see where that goes. I'm not going to say he's going to commit because I don't think he will ultimately, but I'm happy that we made the list at least.
Yeah, it's always good to be in the mix, and I think Nebraska's been in the mix or going to be in the mix for a lot more elite players here in the future. So with that, we will wrap up this episode of the podcast. You guys, we'll be
Wait, did we
back.
cover? Hold on, sorry. Did we cover Michael Terry's third visit? I forget if we did.
We talked about that last
A
week.
little
Yeah.
bit, yeah. So that's
Yeah,
something to watch. But
so keep an eye on Michael Terry. Still hasn't scheduled it yet, but he's expected to hopefully visit for the Colorado game. So the Huskers still have a chance to land a 5-star in the 2025 class in Michael Terry. But yeah, so we'll wrap that up here, you guys. We'll have another episode this week in the middle of the week, probably Wednesday or Thursday. Hopefully, after Nebraska's named their starting quarterback, so we can talk about that. And we're also going to come out with some bold predictions. Our next episode too, we're going to cover 10 bold predictions for the 2024 Nebraska football season. So make sure you do not miss that. In order to not miss it, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, get to the comment section, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.